Many commuters in the Bay Area decided to play it safe this week, avoiding the bridges and taking ferries instead. So many, in fact, that ferry officials had to double the number of boats during rush hour. One commuter made the switch after calculating his odds of dying on a bridge during a terrorist attack.
The mathematical equation, 3 minutes each way, 6 minutes average, 6 hours per day. So the mathematical odds, as far as I can tell, are about 1 in 600 if it does go over the next 2 weeks that I'd be on it.
Playing the odds. That's just what government officials have to do when deciding whether to alert the public of a possible terrorist threat. Last Thursday, California Governor Gray Davis decided to play it this way.
We believe there's a credible threat that there'll be an effort made between November 2nd and November 7th to destroy one of those bridges.
Federal officials did not seem terribly pleased with Davis.
Obviously, Governor Davis thought that one thing that he could do to enhance the security of people using those bridges was to make a public announcement. We did not encourage him to do so.
Nor had they encouraged him to name specific bridges. The vague threat, which came secondhand to a U.S. customs agent, said only that suspension bridges in the West might be threatened. No other Western governor went public with that warning. And yet the California governor named 4 bridges as potential targets: the Golden Gate, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, the Vincent Thomas Bridge in Los Angeles, and the Coronado Bridge, which is not even a suspension bridge.
Probably, if anyone needed to take the blame, would be me. In the discussion prior, I had mentioned those 4 bridges. I have now learned that, to be quite honest, I'm embarrassed. I'm not an engineer.
Davis may have conferred briefly with Commissioner Helmick and those at the news conference, but other officials were caught by surprise. Senate President John Burton heard it on the radio. He wasn't happy about that.
The governor announced that there was, quote, a threat that terrorists at some point were going to maybe blow up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the suspension bridges in the state. But they were safe to drive on, nevertheless.
Other reactions were less tongue-in-cheek.
Tell me your first reaction when you turned on the television set and you saw the governor making this warning.
Well, I went ballistic.
Like other law enforcement officials, Alameda County Sheriff Charles Plummer knew of the warning the night before and dutifully passed it on to those in his emergency district.
We called every sheriff and every police chief from Oregon to Monterey in my 16 counties and told them personally, this is what we have.
And nobody waved their hands in the air and said, oh my gosh.
No, it's just another piece of information.
You get a lot of this information.
Lots of, oh yeah, a lot of information, and 99% of it is not worth anything,
So why did the governor go public? Plummer calls it politics, pure and simple.
If he thought this was credible at 9 p.m. on Wednesday night, that's when he should have alerted people. Why wait 17 or 18 hours and then do it at a political press conference?
But others in law enforcement were quick to defend Davis.
Amount of resources. People need to be informed. They can make decisions on their own as to whether they want to travel that routine bridge or go another route.
And the governor defended himself Thursday night.
You have to do everything you can to protect people, and then if the threat turns out to be false, fine. If you dismiss them and the threat turns out to be serious, you can't live with yourself.
What Davis did not mention was that the word was already leaking out by the time he gave that warning. The FBI had sent that same advisory about an uncorroborated threat over a computer network called InfraGard, which the agency uses to contact the utility companies and other critical industries. Some of those companies then told their workers.
Since certain businesses in the Bay Area are already aware of this and are already notifying their employees, I think if he had not done what he had done, very possibly we could have created panic with certain businesses having their employees aware of it and certain ones not.
Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown says once the FBI advisory was issued, it might as well have been public.
When an email comes out to hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, and at the bottom it says, and don't tell the media. I mean, as soon as I saw that, I said, this is unreal. Because as soon as you say confidential, there's always going to be somebody that has to call their media pet and say, guess what, I got a scoop for you.
Whether the governor made his decision for practical, political, or principled reasons, or a combination of all three, his decision to post National Guard troops on the bridges was apparently reassuring to motorists.
Traffic did not drop off much, even over the weekend. Many people made the trip to scenic Marin County.
We came across the bridge here because we said, hey, we're not going to live our lives afraid of terrorists.
When I drove across, there were highway patrolmen and all kinds of people running around with guns and stuff, so actually probably real safe.
The National Guard presence is mostly just that, a presence. On average, 5 guards are posted at each bridge. The California Highway Patrol can only do so much, and they won't even talk about that. Is there anybody under the bridge? I mean, it seems to me that would be a vulnerable spot.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. Now, on a foggy morning like this, does this create problems too for security?
I'd rather not comment on that.
Okay.
Perhaps the real question is, what can they do?
I'd probably more have emergency vehicles than I would 2 guys standing around with a .22. I don't know what the hell they're going to do anyway. And they certainly aren't going to stop and search cars.
The truth is, it did not take the governor's warning to beef up security on these bridges. They've been under a high security alert since 9/11. The Coast Guard has increased patrols, and the bridges have been reinforced. At the Bay Bridge, workmen used heavy wooden barriers to seal off doors that lead to the understructure. All those efforts will continue, despite the news late yesterday from the FBI. Despite that downgraded threat, the governor did not back down from his position.
I am going to err on the side of caution, and I'm keeping the National Guard on those bridges and the Highway Patrol on those bridges for the foreseeable future.
But of course, the future is unforeseeable. And if this week's bridge scare did nothing else, it sparked an important debate on how such threats should be handled in the days ahead.